So in my video where I reviewed the sound system of the Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus, we got a lot of requests from our viewers to do an installation and a review video on the Hansshow DIY Premium Audio Upgrade Kit that enables these 4 front speakers in the Standard Range models. Well, that's exactly what I'll be doing in today's video. I'll have the step-by-step install guide, the sound demo, and my review all embedded in the timestamps in the video, so you can jump ahead to the different parts of the video if you wish. And if you'd like to get this kit yourself, I'll have the links in the description below where you can use the promo code evkiwis to score yourself a 20% discount. But for now, let's jump straight onto the installation. Now there are several versions of this kit available, but the one I'm installing today is the latest DIY kit for the right-hand drive version of the 2022 Tesla Model 3 with the AMD Ryzen processor. The Hansshow DIY kit comes with everything you need and a set of instructions that may not be very clear, so hopefully this is where this video will help you out. Now before you start, you want to ensure that all the doors are open, as we will be unable to do this later because the car will have its power disconnected. First thing we need to do is navigate to the safety section of your Tesla setting and power it off. Now we will be disconnecting the auxiliary battery. Remove this top cover in the front, which pulls off very easily. To disconnect the battery, lift the green pull tab upwards and slide the black slider towards the right to dislodge it from its place. Next, we'll need to disconnect the high voltage power connector, which is located under the right passenger seat of the car. Lift up the rear seat by pressing in on this white push tab under the seats. Remove this cover protecting the high voltage plug and disconnect it like so by pushing down and twisting the latch on the connector. You do not need to completely pull this plug out. We will now move on to removing the trim panel under the glove box on the front passenger side. For this, you'll need the prying tool that came in the kit, and a flashlight may help here too. Remove these 3 plastic clips holding the panel in place using the prying tool and pull them out completely. Insert the prying tool in between the base of the glove box and this panel to loosen the clips holding it in place. Slowly pull it downwards and towards you. You will see that there are 3 cables we need to disconnect. Carefully remove these one at a time, starting with the rightmost one. Now this last OBD plug needs to be removed from the outside of the panel. Grab a flathead screwdriver to undo the clip on the edge of the connector and press the plug to release it from the panel. It's now time to remove the rest of the side trim panels. Using the prying tool, start by releasing the top 2 panels. To remove the bottom panel, you'll first need to remove this plastic clip as shown here. Now you can pry out this panel as well and move it to the side once you're done. Next, we need to remove this carpet panel connected to the center console of the car. Once again, insert the prying tool in the gap between this panel and rest of the center console to loosen and release the clips holding it in place. You may need some force to pull this panel off. Move this to the side once it's off. Now it's time to repeat the same process on the driver's side and remove the trim panel under the steering wheel. Except here you will also need a Torx T20 screwdriver to remove 1 screw holding this bottom panel in place. You need to remove this 1 screw and these 3 plastic clips to get this to come off. I must point out that removing this panel is not essential to the installation. It just makes it easier to access the socket to plug in a connector, as you will see later on in the installation. However, if you don't have a Torx T20 screwdriver, it's not the end of the world and you can continue without removing this panel. Just like the other side, insert the prying tool in between the base of the steering wheel and this panel to loosen the clips holding it in place. Now there seemed to be another internal clip in this panel holding it in place, which we just couldn't get to pop out, so decided to leave it hanging like this, which luckily didn't actually make a meaningful difference in the end. Now remove the 3 side panels just as we did on the other side of the car. And let's not forget to remove the carpet center console panel as well. You may notice here that sometimes these white plastic clips might fall off when removing this panel. Well, all you need to do is pick these up and pop them back into their slots on the trim panel. You will now see that we have an opening to the other side where we will be routing the cables through. And now comes the fun part of connecting everything together. Back on the passenger side under the glove box towards the very right, you will see that there are 2 plugs, one white and one black. We need to remove both these plugs. First, remove the white plug by using the prying tool to loosen the clip holding it in place and using your fingers to pull it out. Do the same for the black plug as well. Find the wire from the kit with the connectors labeled number 4 and connect this to the black cable. Back under the dash, pull out the black cable and plug it into the female end of this connector. Now push the cable back in and plug the male end back into the socket where the black cable went. You can see that the plug for the black cable is in its socket, and now it's time to also reinsert the white plug back into its socket. Next, grab the connectors labeled number 7, which will be connecting to this existing audio wiring with the blue plugs. Now before we connect these, this wiring first needs to be routed through under the carpet. Start by lifting up the carpet from one side and putting your hand underneath to create a gap. Then feed the wiring harness through the other side and use your hands to pull it out. Take it easy with this step and ensure that the cable isn't getting stuck at any point under the carpet. Remove the blue plug from its socket and plug it into the female end of this connector, and then plug the other end back into the blue socket. Next, we also need to bring the connectors labeled number 6 from underneath the carpet using the same process as the previous connector. Now here's our blue socket, and as you can see here, the number 6 connector needs to go where this black and white plug is currently connected. To remove this plug, you need to push down from the top of the plug like so to release the latch and twist it open. However, there is a trick to this which I'll show you more clearly here. On the right side of this plug, there's a clip that needs to be pressed in to release the latch. Since it's almost impossible to use your fingers to press the clip on the connected plug, I used a flathead screwdriver like this to release the latch. Now let's use this technique on the connected plug to remove it like so. Now grab the number 6 connector and connect the plug we just removed to the female end and lock in the latch by pressing it down and twisting it like so. Now connect the male end back into the socket where we originally removed it from. Ensure that the connection is fully secure by twisting the latch here too. It's now time to repeat this connection process on the driver's side. Route the one remaining connector through the gap under the center console, leaving the main control box in the center gap where it will be stored. This last connector will be the number 5 connector, which needs to be connected to the bottom right side here. Just like the other side, route this connector through under the carpet. Use the same technique as the other side to remove this plug and then plug it into the female end of the number 5 connector. Plug the male end back into the socket. We have now successfully connected the kit, but at this point it's a good idea to test it out and make sure it's all working as expected before we put everything back together. But to do this, you need to reconnect the power to the car. First, reconnect the high voltage power by pushing up and twisting the connection latch on the plug located under the rear passenger seat. Reinsert the protective cover and push down on the seats to lock them into place. Reconnect the terminal on the auxiliary battery. To lock it in, slide the black slider towards the left and push down on the green tab. Now let's jump into the car to test out the sound system. You can see I adjusted the balance around to ensure that both the left and the right sides were indeed working correctly. Now that it's all working, it's time to reinstall everything back. Reattach the top front cover and secure it by pressing down along the edges until you hear the clips clicking into place. Moving on to the passenger side, reinstall the carpet panel to the center console by aligning it and pushing in on it until you hear the click of the clips securing it into place. Make sure that all the plugs and wiring are neatly contained so that they won't get in the way of the side trim panels. You can see I squeezed in these plugs into the free spaces around them. Reinstall the bottom trim panel first by aligning it and pressing down on the edges to get the clips to lock into place. Ensure that the connected plug doesn't get in the way of the hole at the top where this plastic clip goes in. Put the plastic clip in. Use the prying tool to bring the rubber seal back over the trim panel like so. Now let's reinstall the top panels. Once again, use the prying tool to fix the rubber seal. Moving on to the panel that sits below the glove box, we first need to reconnect all the cables. Do this one at a time, starting with the rightmost one. To reinstall this panel, make sure it's all aligned and push the edges to get the clips to lock into place. Reinsert the 3 plastic clips we removed earlier. The passenger side is now all done, so let's move on to the driver's side. Now repeat the same process as the other side here as well. Reinsert the carpet trim panel. Reinstall the base panel of the steering wheel and insert the 3 plastic clips into their slots. And also don't forget the screw we removed earlier using the Torx T20 screw head. Reinstall the 3 side panels starting with the bottom and moving on to the top ones. Well, that completes the installation, so let's jump onto the sound demo and the review part of this video. I will be playing audio over Bluetooth and giving you a sound demo based on this. And just like my previous video, I'll be keeping both the microphone and the camera alongside each of the 4 headrests, which will give you a much better perspective of the spread of the sound from each of the 4 passenger locations. Now jumping onto the audio settings, I'll be leaving all these as default so we can analyze the performance of the system as how Tesla tuned it from the factory. And to ensure consistency in our tests, I've made sure that the volume levels are kept consistent across both tests so you get a better representation of the audio coming out from the default audio system versus the Hansshow kit. Now with that sound demo out of the way, let's move on to my subjective opinion. I must say that with the Hansshow kit installed, there's a noticeable improvement in the sound quality and the overall feel of immersion. And the biggest difference is in the soundstage performance. I was really impressed by the Hansshow kit, as now you can hear much better instrument separation in both the front and the rear cabin of the car. In fact, to my surprise, the difference was much more evident in the rear seats, where you now get a much greater sense of both width and depth. You'll find that the vocals and the highs are brought right up, and due to a lack of a dedicated subwoofer in the rear wheel drive and the standard range models, it may feel like there's less bass compared to the default sound system. To counter this though, you may like to trim down the higher frequencies from your audio settings to get a balanced performance. Now jumping onto the main point, is it really worth it and do you really need it for your Tesla? Well, I can say I have no regrets in getting this kit, as it has made the overall sound experience a lot crispier and much more immersive. And price point wise, I think it's very reasonable, and if you use the code evkiwis, you'll save yourself 20% off your purchase from Hansshow. The links to purchase are in the description below. Now instead of this, if you have been considering the full version F kit from Hansshow that also comes with a dedicated subwoofer and would like to see a similar video on that, comment down below and let me know, and I'll see if I can make it work. Alright, as always, thanks for watching. My name is Dhruv, and until next time, stay charged.